Yeah, who do we have that's responded today? Is this the entire group? If so, we can get started.
So Jasmine was going to be able to make it. I think she said that she would only be able to be here for an hour too. So
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and get
we have
started.
a couple people that can only be here for an hour, so I'm hoping we can just power through. So I guess, oh, awesome. We have Jasmine joining. So let's see, we have Adrian. Mo will not be joining. Okay, so it looks like we have everyone. Anna, do you want to do roll call?
Okay. So Olivia Dudo, here.
I'm here.
Oh, did you have something, Olivia?
Oh, no, just saying here.
Sorry, this is Elizabeth. Hoon is having some trouble hearing. I'm getting a text from them. Something is wrong with her computer. Okay, sorry. So technical issue on Hoon's end. Trying to join.
And it might be, I mean, if they want to hop out and hop back into the meeting, that might help.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, do you want to text that?
Got it.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Olivia, we have Adrian De La Rosa, Elizabeth Johnson, you are here. Mo Mitchell, no Mo today. Hoon is here but cannot hear, so I think I'll come back, or we'll try and figure that out.
Actually, I can hear now. I had to like change some stuff.
Perfect. Hoon is here. And Jasmine Wilder? Here, I see you. That is roll call, Olivia.
Awesome. Then let's do minutes approval from last time. I guess, do we do show of hands? Awesome. If you approve minutes from last time, I'll give like 2-3 minutes to review those. Anna sent those as an attachment with the meeting materials. Once you've taken a look and approved, toss your virtual hand up. Cool, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Adrian, I saw your hand. Awesome. Okay, great. Minutes approved. Okay, so then let's get into the meat of today. We have most people for about an hour, and I think that'll be plenty of time. The biggest goal for us today is to approve our conduct section of our governance and guidelines document in order to get that over to the larger group for our upcoming meeting. There were just 1 or 2 more areas of that conduct document that I think we wanted to talk through. There was also some discussion in the governance meeting, which most of you attended yesterday, about the ethics section, or Martha's rules section. If we have time today, we can talk about that. But for the most part, Anna, if you wouldn't mind pulling up that conduct piece of our governance and guidelines doc, want to get everyone's eyes on that so we can get that approved before we meet as an entire commission. Awesome. Okay, so let's go through, let's table letter B under section B, that Robert's Rule of Order for now. Again, if we have time to talk about Robert's rules versus Martha's rules, I think we should at least get that started, but I know that could potentially derail us. But let's start with section B, letter C. Okay, we talked about this last time, but I want to make sure, again, this feels right to everyone, considering, I guess we've only been able to test it once between the last time we talked and having an entire commission meeting, but we want to gather agenda items at the end of, I guess, each meeting where we meet as a commission. Chair and vice chair will draft those up with help from Anna to send those out, and we send the entire commission agenda items 48 hours prior to every meeting, which, thanks to Anna, has been happening with the subcommittee groups, and that allows for enough time for final comments and changes. Any thoughts, edits, opportunities to improve this?
I just highlight
I
why
think
there's yellow highlighting. I just wanted to really quick let folks know, this is mostly for the leads who help to draft and approve the agendas, that internally we do have a rule that Kayla has just been very gracious with me on to date, but I want to be better about this, that materials, agendas and things are done being drafted and approved 1 week prior to the meeting so that we can get those posted. I think it's just like a transparency thing with public. We want to get those posted so folks know well in advance of the meeting. So that's why that's highlighted. I just wanted to bring that up.
I heard another voice. Any other adjustments you want to make here?
I think it was me, and I was just going to say that the same thing, that I don't think 48 hours is going to work with how the city operates and how they would like the agenda to be posted. So we're gonna have to get those changes in earlier.
I think I can share I think for me, 48 hours is like which again, it's like I sent these materials yesterday, so I didn't need that. I think moving forward, I really want to be able to communicate with you all and our leads to get those things finalized well in advance, so that I can get those to Kayla to get posted publicly. And then once they're posted publicly, then I can follow up immediately after that and send them out to all of you. So all of the meeting materials that have been approved. I think moving forward, we can just have more conversation about this with the leads and our leadership team. Once everybody next week kind of adopts that, if the group adopts those guidelines, then we can talk about maybe it's a meeting prior or what your expectations are around that. But I think this is definitely doable.
Yeah, awesome. The only other edit I had here based on our conversation from the governance meeting yesterday was for the B bullet point under letter C, chair/vice chair, bring to draft. Just wondering if what the group thinks about adding chair, vice chair / leads, bring to draft with help of staff. Because I have a feeling those new positions will likely have agenda items. I guess turning to you, Jasmine, on like how you want those new positions, like the communications lead or the safety lead, incorporated in agenda creation.
Yes, I mean, I think that that's very realistic that they would be providing agenda points as well. Ultimately, we did want to start involving the entire commission, with the priority being at the end of every meeting, there's an opportunity to provide agenda points for the next meeting. And then I still feel that it's the chair and vice chair's responsibility, along with city staff, to get that, to incorporate all of that. But I think that there's flexibility, and so you can add the leads.
Yeah, and to that point too, let's update the language in letter A there, agenda items to be gathered at the end of each meeting. Because I definitely hear you. I want to do that for this session too, where we end our hour together with what the items are.
Emphasis is now there.
Okay. Any other edits on agendas? And I will say, caveat for this entire activity, there is a bullet point at the end of this document that allows for updates as we continue to work. So if something comes up in the future, we can always make changes. Okay, letter D, meetings will begin and end on time. If agenda items cannot be completed within the scheduled time, the HRAC will determine whether the meeting should be extended or if the discussion will be suspended until the following meeting. We often run into time constraints, so I want to pause and get any thoughts here on how this has been running in the past.
If we were to add any verbiage as far as like the committee determining whether the meeting should be extended, would we add the verbiage on here as how we would decide that, or would that be separate?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a part of this bullet that like I don't even know if is possible. Like normally we get cut off because resources like translation
Yeah.
resources or ASL resources have to jump off at a particular time. So
Yeah,
is that
I guess
even an
that's also a
option?
good point. Do we even have an option to extend?
Yeah. My only concern with leaving that option to extend there is losing quorum, because obviously people have lives and have to jump off at a particular time. So perhaps it's HREC will determine if the discussion will be moved to the following meeting or something. Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to offer my 2 cents. I think the language, including the extension, is okay. I mean, there, as some of you pointed out, it may be that most of the time there are reasons why it can't be extended, but there may be other times where you can squeeze another 10 or 15 minutes out to get something concluded. So yeah, I think having the option, if it ever is available, is a good thing. And how it's going to happen in any given case is going to depend on what's going on and what the possibilities are. So I think it's good to have the flexibility, even if it may not be realistic most of the time.
Okay, so then to Adrian's point, what if we add the HREC will determine whether the meeting should be extended, and then in parentheses by vote?
Yeah, you could include that. I think it goes without saying, because any decision of the body eventually needs to be by a vote. So you could include it, but I think it's it's probably not necessary, but for clarity's sake, sure.
Yeah, that wasn't clear to me. And I guess I'd rather have by vote there, just so all members of the commission feel like they have a voice, and it's not just like the leads asking people to stick around. Adrian, sorry, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I was thinking about the losing quorum too, but I think that kind of goes without mention as well, kind of what Ian's saying. Like HREC will determine whether the meeting should be extended by vote or not losing quorum. But again, I think that's on Ian's point, it's without saying.
Okay, let's move to letter E, unless there's any other comments. Okay. Meetings will be conducted in such a way that the HREC members have an opportunity to hear various points of view before making motions or decisions. Facilitators should allow for moments to comment, object, share opinions. If moment of pause has no comment, then we proceed. I remember this discussion from a couple weeks ago where we're trying to be really conscious about allowing for a moment of pause after either every a statement or body of work is shared. Any other comments to make sure we hold ourselves to that? It feels like we've gotten better at this. At least I like that there's some silence on the end of everything that's shared, just to get people to think. Okay, any other thoughts there? All right, let's move to letter F. HREC members will conduct their business with integrity, thoughtfulness, and collegiality in order to foster a productive discussion environment. Committee members should use welcoming and inclusive language while also reducing harmful language. Use language that is rooted in an understanding of the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Examples: proper pronoun use, attentive body language, avoiding generalizations, minimizing I feel statements to focus on serving the community, be accountable to any biases / misspeaks. Let's pause there first. Go ahead.
Should we put in here what we talked about in governance about that shared power, the language from allyship and action? Should we put something like that in here? I can't remember all the terms. I do remember shared power on there, but do you remember that from yesterday?
Yeah, great point. I do remember that from yesterday, and I'm wondering, Anna, would that better serve us in the ethics section? Because I know we had a comment to add allyship and action language in the ethics section from yesterday.
I do have that note, and I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm wondering if it does make sense to me that it lives here. I also think, again, I think that ethics piece for me, I'm just connecting it more to like the state. We can have a set of values around, that value statement in the section yesterday towards the end of ethics. We can build that out. So maybe what I can do is include some language from the allyship and action report around that values. I think there's just one sentence at this point, and build that out. I think we could also put language around shared power within the positions, I think, and just recognizing that folks within these leadership roles will operate in a way of including shared power, or we can include it here. I don't know that I have a particular preference. It kind of makes sense to me to live right here a little bit.
Yeah, then let's, I guess, as long as it's not duplicative of the ethics section, let's add a comment to add that here. And Anna, is that something you can pull from allyship and action for us?
Yeah, what I'm thinking is I'll read through that, pull some of that language, and I'll share it with I can share it with the subcommittee after this meeting, and you all can weigh in on that, or tell me which one, where you'd like to have it added.
I guess to Hoong's point, let's maybe add it in that header. So integrity, thoughtfulness, and collegiality plus whatever the allyship and action language is. And I think it was like shared power and something about the community.
Advocacy.
Yeah, there we go.
I just had it open. Oh.
Go ahead.
Representation, relationships, systemic change, and access to services. Those were the key points that I see.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think access to services was the last one, Anna.
I know we talked.
Oh, go ahead.
I know we talked about it kind of yesterday too, about, and I know we said that communications was already working on some type of DEI statement or set of agreements. For us, like, how like usually in we have like a Zoom meeting at the beginning, there's some form of, this is our agreements, right, for the meeting. I don't know if that would be helpful for us before we do land acknowledgement, like, this is why we're here, to be community focused, not the I focus and what we've talked about in the past, the wait, why am I talking part, that pause, just so we can be reminded again, right, we're in an HREC meeting. This is the space that we're trying to create. I don't know if that would be helpful, or, again, I think it's as important as a land acknowledgement, which that's a totally different conversation to be had. But anyway, I don't know if that's going to be helpful or not to put here.
Yeah, and that, I guess, are you seeing that in the language section? So that bullet point number 1.
Yeah, I was looking at that right there.
Yeah, okay. So are you envisioning it as like a preamble to meetings, like we will be using X tactics as we speak to each other?
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds us to let's treat each other like humans, and we're here for the community, right? And that's why we're here. Just like a reminder, I guess.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the group thinks about pulling this up at the beginning of each meeting. Jasmine, I see your hand.
Well, just from how we're communicating this from an organizational perspective, this section is describing meeting conduct, and the AA language is really more of a value statement or a mission statement from an organizational perspective. So I'm thinking that if anything, you would put this in the ethics section, but then you can add that we open each meeting with a reading of the impact statement or the value statement, however we choose to classify that. And I think that's what we're going for here, because otherwise it's the A language just doesn't fit here when you're talking about like how to conduct yourself, but then you're also talking about our values like access to services that has nothing to do with like the meeting, like how we carry ourselves on our meeting. So I feel like it's more like, hey, we're going to read a value statement to remind us our purpose, or actually I would call it maybe a mission statement to remind us why we are here, what we're doing. It gets read at the top of the meeting. And that language also appears in our ethics section. So that's just my suggestion from an organizational thought process.
Just hearing you and Hoong, how about this as a compromise? We add the allyship and action report language to the ethics section, and then we add a third bullet point under section 1 here that says we will read our allyship and action, mission statement or influence statement at the beginning of each meeting. Hoong, Jasmine, anyone else thoughts on that?
That's hybrid? That's exactly what I was kind of suggesting or thinking.
Okay, yeah, sorry if I repeated. Hoong, thoughts there?
Oh yeah, I was just trying to connect it all. So again, we're thinking about how we conduct ourselves, and sometimes we forget. So I just think it'd be helpful. And also to remind us and the community that we are looking at not just community access to things, but ours. I mean, sometimes we don't have access to a good computer, or we have internet problems, or, something's broken. So I think being real with each other is, seeing each other also. So I think where it is right now is perfect.
Awesome. Then Anna, let's insert that language in the ethics section like we talked about yesterday.
I just made a note of that, and so I'm going to resolve this comment here.
Awesome.
I have this note to go do that.
Perfect. Jasmine, did you have another comment? I still see your hand. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on section 1 before we move to section 2? Okay, section 2, be respectful of different viewpoints and experiences. Declare what is opinion. Respect in the context of HREC means disrupting harm for those that go unheard, listening to understand versus wanting to be right. Hoong, this is what you were mentioning. Wait, why am I talking? Mindfulness. Bullet point 3, monitor for those who have not spoken yet. Bullet point 4, calling in rather than calling out, soliciting for opinions in a caring, thoughtful way versus in a gotcha way. Bullet point 5, comfort with discomfort. If you wouldn't mind scrolling up, there's a lot here. How about we pause and focus on section 2, I through V. Any thoughts, edits, additions?
I think that I have some questions about the section where it talks about respect in the context of the HREC means. I mean, there's going to be a lot more other things in addition to what's listed here that can be considered a part of respectful communications. So I just wonder about how to make that even more open to additional.
Yeah, what if we relabel that section as tactics to be respectful? Like not an inexhaustive list of tactics to be respectful.
Exactly. Yes.
Is this point two?
Point two. Yeah, tactics, HREC members will use. Some of the tactics HREC members will use to be respectful. And then that list there.
Well, and that it can include, but there's also going to be other
Yeah.
things, maybe other tactics, so not just those.
Tactics that, sorry. That one.
If you go back, if you erase respect through that, I'm thinking like some tactics that HREC members can use to be respectful include. Jasmine, I see your hand.
Okay, sorry. So this is my suggestion because I agree with Elizabeth on the kind of the lack of clarity. I would say that you put it at number 2. You say the tactics goes at number 2. These are potentially some tactics that can be used, and then that point II or point 2, the subpoint, you would say not respect in a traditional sense, but also the HRAC definition. So it can keep the respect tactic very general, and then you can give the specification of the HRAC perspective there. But ultimately, this entire section all the way down are all tactics, or suggested tactics, I guess I should say.
So you're saying take some tactics that HREC members can use to be respectful, include up to number 2 as the header.
Yeah, so I'm saying, yeah, at number 2, because all of it that follows technically is tactics. So it explains this entire section.
But to your point, and this is maybe a conversation for the group as a whole, I don't think we've defined respect. And that's such a hard thing to put a definition against. But yeah, something.
Yeah, ultimately. So I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think that I like if you don't want to specifically call that respect, and you just want to leave it as as a tactic all on its own. I think that's possible. I was just the way it was listed before.
I like the clarity in the header. I'm just saying in general, this is kind of came up with the concept of safety yesterday. Like safety is so hard to define. It differs by every person. Respect is so hard to define. It's different for every person. So you might need more discussion there. Any other comments on the tactics? So I through V.
Under V,
okay.
Sorry, with the number 1, the color zoom background idea, I'm not even sure if we can implement that or what that's gonna. I can tell you that if you give me an option to change the background on my Zoom, it's probably going to stay the same color the entire meeting because I'm not going to change. And I know that it was brought up with the idea of having a visual for folks to see where you are, if you're feeling, I think we discussed some different ideas around what people feel when they might be triggered. And so the idea there was that we could make it, green, yellow, red, so people can visualize what it is that we're feeling. I don't know, I'm just feeling kind of uncomfortable with that whole idea, just because, again, I probably won't change my Zoom background myself. And I think part of that is not only that I just won't think to do it, but it increases the amount of vulnerability to folks.
Yeah, practically, I think you're right. It is hard to do in the moment. I'm wondering if instead of number 1, we can all commit to doing number 3. So any member reserves the right to call time out.
Yeah. Do we know if is it possible to even change your background in the middle of a call? I don't know if that's even.
I don't see the feature here.
Logistically possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, I think, yes, like you're right. We're going to have to build up a culture of feeling comfortable verbalizing that we're feeling, triggered or called out in any way. But I think language in number 3 helps us at least create the space for it without having the background changes. Hung, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing with that. Your third one pretty much does what 1 is saying. Maybe in 1, we encourage commissioners to speak up. Because I know it's hard when you are triggered because your body responds however it's going to respond. So it's going to be challenging for people to just say, hey, I'm triggered, I need a moment. But maybe this could be something part of the safety lead can take moments of pause to check in. I mean, I know we can't do it all the time, but if they or any of the lead really recognizing that, oh, it seems like someone is being triggered, maybe it's also part of any lead.
Yeah, so how about this? Let's strike number 1. We'll bring number 3 up to number 1. And for bullet point number 3, so I monitor for those who have not spoken yet. I think that could potentially hold the language that Hung is talking about, where leads are monitoring for either those who haven't spoken, those who have gotten really quiet. Maybe the safety lead is monitoring for people that have shut down. Any other comments or adds for I through V? Okay, let's scroll to number 3. Discuss and debate ideas in manners that avoids personal criticism. Be open to disagreement and alternative ideas. I think that one's been covered in the section above. Any edits there? Okay, 4. Show courtesy and respect towards other committee members, staff, or members of the public. Any comments? Okay. Number 5, participate actively in discussions, both through voicing views and listening to others' views. Step up in sharing your thoughts if you are usually quiet. Step up in listening if you frequently speak. Seeing a lot of dual coverage in section 2 and then these bullet points. Any comments? Okay. Number 6, pause before moving on from a topic or question. Cool. Have that one covered above. And I am noticing a lot of duplicitous language here. So Anna, we need to clean this up. Feel free. 7, ask questions to receive clarification before assuming someone's intent. Any comments? 8, be understanding that committee members are under different circumstances and may have different capacities at any given time to contribute to committee work.
Who had their hand up, I think.
Oh, Hung,
Olivia.
sorry, I missed you. Yeah.
Can we go back to 7 about assuming someone's intent? Is it possible to really acknowledge that we're really looking at the impact we're making, not so much the intent? Just one of the things that like wanting us to recognize is that, intention only benefits the person doing harm. So even if you have good intentions or someone has good intentions, that doesn't mean the impact is not going to be harmful. I don't know if that's necessary here at all, but when we do talk about intent, I want us to be clear so folks can really understand the difference.
Yeah. you're right. I think, right, whether the intention is good or not, the impact already happened. How about ask questions to receive clarification before assuming someone's intent or pausing to evaluate impact of someone's statements or actions? Thoughts there, Hung?
Yeah, I mean, that works.
Because you're right, I think it's both. Okay, any other comments on that language or number 8? Okay, let's go to letter G. Almost done, team. Power through.
Hold on,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to like my notes too that I wrote to I don't know if this is necessary because like these were just stuff I was writing. I think we already kind of did this, reminding ourselves that we are here to help the city innovate and move forward as a whole community. I put that as like a new tab. I don't really think that's necessary now that I think about like all the stuff we've changed. But
I'm
I
hoping
do,
that comes through in the allyship and action stuff that we add to the ethics
yeah,
too.
I think so too. So never mind.
But I think good to call out. And I guess if it isn't explicitly in, innovation, pushing the city forward, if that's not explicitly in the allyship and action ethics language, then we should add it. So let's look for that during our group session. I guess tomorrow or next week, whenever we're meeting. Okay. Letter G, HREC members will hold themselves and each other accountable for following the conduct norms described in G. Accountability will be created with the following practices. If a committee member offends or makes another member feel unsafe, emotionally, mentally, or physically, committee members should discuss the issue with each other first. If needed, committee members should discuss the issue with the chair and/or city staff. As needed, follow-up discussion to identify next steps to resolve the issue will occur.
Should we put the safety and peer relations lead to be part of this?
Yeah, that had been my thought too. This looks like a very key duty of that safety person.
Great call. Let's see, maybe we should say with each other. Yeah, safety and cool. Good call. And I'm wondering if bullet point number 7 above should come into this section. Or maybe 6 and 7 should come into this section. In terms of any objections there, I'm just thinking those are other ways to keep us accountable when things have gone awry. Okay. Fellow committee members will speak up at their chosen level if they hear another member using disrespectful, harmful, or questionable language. Cool. I think we all agree there. Any adds to section G? Okay, and then final section, right? Is that right, Hannah? Okay, letter H. Heck yeah, for letter H. Okay, HREC members should establish a priority to attend all meetings and to come prepared to contribute to the discussion of the issues to be addressed. Any edits? Do we want to include any language here about absences or requesting absences or what have you?
No, that had been my idea as well, is can we have something in there that says we'll communicate in a timely manner if we will be absent or something like that? Because I know it's been affecting quorum before.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm also thinking members will communicate if they can't attend a full meeting. Like, for example, I have to drop at 1 today, which would affect quorum.
So I'm just gonna mention I did communicate this to our leaders, but I'm also dropping out one. So I didn't know that you were as well, but
Yeah, right. So I'm wondering if like the attendance is part one, but then like how long you can stay is part two.
oh no, I mean like literally today.
Yeah. No, same.
Today.
Like literally today, I also have to drop at one. So
Okay.
we are going
Gotcha.
to lose quorum. I'm just thinking, should we put a line item in there that like members will also communicate how long they can stay in a meeting? Just so we know
Yes,
if we have to make
I think
decisions, we
that's
should do it at
important.
the front end.
Yeah, that will be important.
What's a timely manner? Because I feel like that's
Mm.
pretty loose for someone to say, hey, I called you half hour before the meeting. So I think establishing a timeline, I think, would be helpful for the rest.
Yeah,
Well,
good
and I
call.
thought that too, but then I also don't want to pigeonhole folks into not communicating because you may not know you're not going to make it until that day. So we still want to encourage folks to, as soon as they know, communicate it.
Can we
So-
set a standard, but then also use language that says, unless, like that opens it up to like emergency situations like that as well. So if we say something like, please communicate within 48 hours, unless emergency, in cases of emergency, which stops you from being able to know.
Yeah,
They
maybe
don't feel
within
pigeonholed.
48 hours or as soon as known, as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's why I tried to just leave it as a vague comment, but
Yeah. As soon as they know. Did I talk over someone?
I was just curious, I mean, something, and I don't know if it lives in this section, but I just want to elevate that sometimes, and I totally understand like communication, people are really busy. But when it comes to like getting agendas or things approved, I've been doing this, so I'm just wondering if we want to either outline it as an okay practice or if we want to try to shift the language a little bit. But if I don't get any response on for feedback or approval, I've just been going ahead and approving the agenda to get it posted publicly because we have those rules. So I'm just throwing that out there in terms of, I'm hoping that it's okay that I continue that trend. If folks don't have capacity to get back to me with feedback, that staff being able to make that decision on behalf of the HRAC to continue the work moving forward.
Yeah, so are you saying that a non-response is assumed to be an absence, or like a non-response is not prioritized? I'm trying to think of ways to.
I mean, and again, I don't think maybe it doesn't live here. It just came to me of like, what are current practices that are happening that we might need to address in this document, and non-communication to me means that I need to step in and go ahead and approve the agenda and move the work forward. And I'm not assuming no communication means they're not attending the meeting. I'm just assuming they're busy. So I'm going ahead and taking on the responsibility of approving your agendas. So
Yeah.
if maybe that lives in here, up here somewhere, or if it's okay that I work that language in later on and report back on what it was. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Maybe it's like a non-response defers to the majority.
Anna, maybe you could give an example of what you're talking about so that like Olivia can understand and then provide, because in essence you're saying, can I get in writing what's already happening so we can make sure that the entire commission's okay with this, or is like clear and understands this process that has been happening? Is that what you're in essence saying?
Yes. So like yesterday's meeting as an example, I got some feedback. Wait, no, I did not. So yesterday's I just approved the agenda and had Kayla post it publicly because of like state law around public meetings. And so we want to be thoughtful that we're posting things publicly and being transparent with the public about what we're meeting about in these meetings. So because I had not received approval for that agenda, I just went ahead and did it. And I think it's just, again, capacity for folks. It's a lot of agendas. We had 2 subcommittee meetings this month along with next week's meeting. So I'm just wanting to make sure that it's okay with this group that I continue to do that. If I'm taking in what I'm hearing as and saying as priorities for agenda items, but I'm ultimately, I would say, probably 50% of the agendas I'm creating and approving myself. And I just would love if that, I mean, if I guess and just like that responsibility should be shared in my opinion, but I understand that it can't be. And so is it okay that I can?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And frankly, I don't know what we would do without you doing that. We'd be wildly unprepared. So yeah, like deferment to city staff in the event that there's, you know, a lack of response from membership.
We could try to do deferment to city staff and like another, like, I don't know how to say this. I'm sorry, I'm just like tired. My brain's not working, but another leadership position, like city staff to confer with another HRAC leadership position to get approval. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I can like make it sound more proper.
Yeah, I'm fine with that in sentiment. Whatever language makes sense.
I ultimately feel like that's probably what's happening. So just making it official.
Okay.
What about meeting times? That I feel like that's another thing. If we are not communicating about availability and meeting times, I think that also comes down to somebody needing to make a call, and that might need to be deferred to city staff as well. And partnership.
Yeah, or like just defers to the majority of respondents.
Yes, that's great. To the majority of respondents, yeah.
Sorry, so is that a separate, do you want that to be a separate piece? Like here, a D, we're saying. I guess it is.
Yeah, I guess something about like meeting time decisions to be made by like the majority of respondents or by city staff as needed. And just for the sake of time, I want to get consensus from this group that this document is ready for HREC Commission review as a whole next meeting. Can I get some nods or some hands or some comments?
I feel good about it.
Awesome. Me too.
I do
Me
too.
Yes, I
Yay.
agree.
What about you?
Oh yeah, I mean, this looks great. Besides the Roberts rule, which I think will be a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But everything else I think is great, and maybe Roberts rule can just be the next time, the next thing we target at a later time. But everything else looks great.
Awesome. Well done, team. I know this has been a long time in the making, so I appreciate everyone's comments and patience. With that in mind, with Hoong's comment in mind, let's pivot to Anna, if you wouldn't mind, number 5 on the agenda. Let's talk about what we want to talk about next time we get together, before we go into staff updates. So, what agenda topics do we want to talk about as a group? A couple that have come to mind recently. We still haven't really tackled the like machinery behind public comment. We haven't talked about the new positions like communications lead or safety lead and how they play into this subgroup. We also haven't talked so much about website design. Those are 3 big areas that have come up in the past that we haven't tackled yet.
I have questions. I know that yesterday, for those who were on yesterday for the governance and guidelines meeting, there's some plans for March already. And I think with some of that work that's going to happen in March, I mean, I'm wondering, first of all, when are we going to meet again? Because I know for governance and guidelines, we talked about meeting again in April because we may disband that group altogether. But it feels like this group was probably going to be a little bit longer standing group. So what's the time frame as you think we might be meeting again?
That is a good question. I guess on the off month, so that would put us what? End of March, April? So about a month or so from now. Jasmine, I see your hand.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the ways we could, so to backtrack, we had talked about disbanding both subcommittees at the point of the documents, their work being complete, and then shifting into using getting 2 main business meetings that can be staffed properly per month for us to fully focus on the action plan. And I think there's a fair argument that the rest of the work that this communications group needs to do could actually be shifted over to the action plan. In other words, launching, that website, that communication platform that is both educating the public and providing access points for them to connect with us and, be able to report discrimination, and then have a series of, actions that are happening on the part of the commission. All of that can really potentially be rolled over to the action plan, allowing us to disband this group and adding it to one of our major objectives. It might even be more comfortable there. But that's just a thought process. So that we can maybe be a little bit more realistic about capacity and what we have the ability to do, and also keeping us on a accelerated timeline. So, I mean, that's something we could bring up later, but I mean, as the communications group, maybe we could talk about that here for a couple of minutes, see how people feel.
Yeah, I'm wondering if next meeting we talk about action plan.
Next meeting, like this communications thing?
Yeah, because there's a number of actions that revolve around the topic of communications that we haven't put pen to paper on yet.
Well, what I'm saying is the rest of this work potentially could roll over into the action plan, and then this group doesn't meet again, if that seems easier. That's fine.
Yeah, right. But we're going to need a smaller group to actually determine what's in that action plan. I figured we could get started there before we then rearrange personnel. Right, because we've already identified topics around communications that will eventually be part of the action plan. Anna or who I might have heard your voices.
I heard him as well.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree. I think it's too soon to go ahead and roll over to something else. Like Elizabeth was saying earlier, this seems like this could be a longer subcommittee group, because it's a little bit different than the governance subcommittee. And like you said, there are still some action items that we haven't done yet. So anyway, Elizabeth, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all good.
Yeah, I
was
think
just
we
noticing
need
that
one.
Anna had her hand up.
I think we need another session before we. I think we need another session to talk about actions before we then disband or rearrange the group. Anna, go ahead.
I'm wondering, just knowing, I think internally some stuff that's going on around a website redesign and y'all's retreat, my advice would be for this group to consider having your meeting, pushing it out until April, because I think then you will have an understanding of some of those group priorities that could influence. It's like basically like, hey, the code says we're gonna field community complaints around discrimination, so we need to set that up. So I think then that can give me the opportunity to make sure that we have our web design folks from communications come and do a presentation on where we're at with that, because it's just starting. And this CREC has already been identified as one of the key people or bodies that are going to influence the priorities of that work. So I think that and the retreat, it would make sense to me to push that out till a little later in April if possible.
Got it. Okay, then let's do that with an eye for action in April. And Anna, I know Jasmine and I only have 1 minute, but I want the entire group to hear your updates. So let's at least get started with your staff updates and
Thank you.
And we can wrap.
Just really quick, I've been talking with communications about potentially doing I want to have a conversation about doing a Meet Your Commissioners series over this next year. As month by month, we have all of these cultural times of significance happening. It's Black History Month. Next month is Trans Day of Visibility. And so I've been talking with a couple folks about potentially kind of putting out on social media and internally. I think here at the city, it's critical to just highlight each person who would like to participate. I definitely think it's an opt-in situation to just do a little bio and maybe a photo. And so I thought at the retreat, we could do headshots if anybody wants them done or needs them done. And then I can kind of work with the communications lead or whoever to draft some language so that we could do some posts just so community and city staff get to know who our commissioners are as people, instead of also just this huge body, but like, what is the work that you're doing in community and who are you? So again, like matching those up. So I'm thinking about Native American Heritage Month or Indigenous Peoples Day, highlighting either Elizabeth or Crow, depending on how they feel about that. Next month, I've had a preliminary conversation just in passing with Kay, and I think that they were into the idea of being highlighted next month. So Jasmine, you would be this month. So just thinking through if that's something that this group is interested in. I'm just throwing that out there. I know you all have to leave, but I thought it would be nice. And I have other things, but I'll email them.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, I'll email the other things. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, Olivia. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.